Mars isn't dead. It's frozen, waiting for someone insane enough to wake it up. And one billionaire believes the fastest way to do that is with nuclear bombs. Not small ones either. Thousands of thermonuclear explosions detonated above an entire planet. Sounds like science fiction, right? But here's the strange part. Scientists have actually studied this idea for decades. Serious scientists, NASA researchers, planetary physicists. Even Elon Musk publicly suggested it. The goal? Turn Mars from a frozen wasteland into a second Earth. Imagine standing on the surface of Mars without a heavy space suit. Rivers flowing again. Clouds forming in the sky. Entire cities glowing beneath giant glass domes. That's the dream. But to understand why anyone would even consider nuking a planet, you first need to understand how terrifying Mars really is. Mars looks beautiful from space. Red deserts, giant volcanoes, endless canyons. But the moment you step onto its surface, it tries to kill you. The atmosphere is almost non-existent. The air pressure is so low your blood could literally begin to boil. Temperatures average around -63 degrees Celsius. Radiation constantly blasts the surface because Mars lost most of its magnetic field billions of years ago. And this is where it gets weird. Mars may not have always been like this. Scientists believe ancient Mars once had rivers, oceans, rainfall, maybe even conditions suitable for life. So what happened? Somehow, the planet lost almost everything. Its atmosphere slowly leaked into space. The warmth disappeared. The water froze or vanished underground. Mars became a planetary graveyard. But what if we could reverse that process? That's where the nukes come in. The theory sounds deceptively simple. Detonate massive thermonuclear bombs above the polar ice caps. The explosions release trapped carbon dioxide and water vapor into the atmosphere. Those gases create a greenhouse effect. The planet begins warming itself naturally. At least, that's the idea. But that's not even the craziest part. Some people believe this could transform Mars within our lifetime. And that's when things changed. At first glance, the plan almost sounds genius. Mars already has frozen carbon dioxide locked inside its polar caps. Heat those caps enough, and the gas escapes into the atmosphere. More atmosphere means more pressure. More pressure means more heat gets trapped. More heat melts more ice. And suddenly, Mars starts changing itself. A chain reaction. A planetary reboot. But here's the problem nobody talks about. What if Mars doesn't have enough carbon dioxide left? In 2018, scientists published a devastating study in Nature Astronomy. They calculated how much gas could realistically be released from Mars using current technology. The answer shocked people. Even if every single accessible carbon dioxide source on Mars was released perfectly, the atmosphere would only reach about 7% of Earth's. 7%. That's nowhere near enough for humans to breathe. Nowhere near enough to create stable oceans. Nowhere near enough to terraform the planet. And this is where the dream starts falling apart. Because nuking Mars wouldn't instantly create paradise. It might barely change anything at all. Think about the scale for a second. Mars is an entire planet. A world with a surface area bigger than all Earth's continents combined. Trying to heat it with nuclear explosions is like throwing a lit match into Antarctica and expecting summer. But here's the strange part. Even if the bombs worked perfectly, the warming process could still take decades, maybe centuries. And humans don't survive easily on Mars during those centuries. Radiation remains deadly. Dust storms still rage across the planet for months at a time. The cold still freezes almost everything. And then comes the biggest danger of all. The bombs themselves. People hear, nuke Mars, and imagine controlled scientific explosions. Reality is much uglier. The bombs proposed for terraforming would be vastly stronger than the atomic bombs dropped during World War II. Some estimates suggest over 1,000 times stronger. Now imagine even one of those bombs detonating incorrectly. Instead of exploding high above the atmosphere, it hits the surface. The result? Massive craters, planet-wide debris clouds, extreme radiation contamination, and potentially something far worse. Because what happens next could make Mars even colder than before. This is where the entire plan turns terrifying. Most people think nuclear explosions only create heat. But giant explosions also create dust. Enormous amounts of it. On Earth, scientists have long feared something called nuclear winter. The concept is simple. So much ash and debris gets blasted into the atmosphere that sunlight can no longer reach the surface properly. Temperatures collapse. Crops die. Entire ecosystems fail. Now imagine that happening on Mars, a planet already freezing to death. One badly executed terraforming attempt could fill the thin Martian atmosphere with gigantic dust clouds. Instead of warming the planet, the explosions could block sunlight completely. Mars gets darker, colder, more hostile than before. And this is where it gets weird. Mars already experiences dust storms so massive they can swallow the entire planet. Entirely. Some storms last for weeks. Others last for months. NASA rovers have literally died because sunlight couldn't reach their solar panels. Now combine those storms with nuclear debris. You don't get paradise. You get a nightmare world. But that's not even the craziest part. Terraforming Mars assumes humans can actually control a planetary climate. And Earth itself proves how hard that is. Right now, humanity struggles to manage climate change on our own planet. Rising temperatures, extreme weather, melting ice caps, and that's on a world already perfectly designed for human life. So what makes us think we can engineer an entirely dead planet millions of kilometers away? And then scientists discovered another problem nobody expected. Mars keeps losing atmosphere to space. Even today, without a strong magnetic field protecting it, solar winds slowly strip atmospheric particles away into the void. That means even if humans somehow thicken the atmosphere, Mars could continue leaking it away over time, like trying to fill a bathtub with the drain wide open. And that's when scientists began asking a terrifying question. What if Mars simply cannot be terraformed at all? Not with nukes. Not with factories. Maybe not ever. But here's the strange part. That possibility didn't stop people from dreaming bigger. Because some scientists started looking at another planet entirely. A planet even more horrifying than Mars. Venus. And what they proposed next sounded completely insane. Venus looks nothing like Mars. Mars is frozen. Venus is hell. Surface temperatures on Venus are hot enough to melt lead. The atmosphere is so thick it crushes anything that lands there. Acid clouds swirl through the sky like poison hurricanes. And somehow, people still want to terraform it. But before we even get to Venus, there's something deeper hiding beneath the Mars debate. Something almost nobody talks about. Terraforming isn't really about planets. It's about survival. Every discussion about colonizing Mars comes from the same fear. What happens if Earth becomes unlivable? Asteroid impacts, nuclear war, artificial intelligence, climate collapse. Humanity understands one terrifying truth. Right now, our entire species exists on one fragile rock floating through space. One mistake could erase everything. So Mars became humanity's backup plan. A second chance. And this is where it gets emotional. Because when people talk about nuking Mars, they're not really talking about destruction. They're talking about hope. A desperate attempt to prove humans can survive beyond Earth. But what happens if that hope is built on fantasy? Because every year, the scientific obstacles grow larger. Terraforming Mars may require technology humanity doesn't even possess yet. Artificial magnetic shields, planet-sized atmospheric generators, massive orbital mirrors reflecting sunlight onto the poles. The scale becomes almost incomprehensible. And then comes the biggest twist of all. Some researchers now believe the smarter option isn't changing Mars. It's changing humans instead. Genetic engineering, cybernetic enhancements. Humans adapted specifically for alien worlds. Think about that for a second. Instead of making Mars more like Earth, we could make future humans more like Mars. And suddenly, the entire conversation flips upside down. The real future of space colonization may not involve transforming planets at all. It may involve transforming ourselves. But here's the strange part. That idea raises terrifying questions nobody can answer. At what point do modified humans stop being human? Would Martian-born people even feel connected to Earth anymore? And if humanity spreads across multiple planets, does our species eventually split apart forever? That's when the dream of Mars stops feeling exciting and starts feeling unsettling. For decades, Mars represented humanity's greatest fantasy. A dead world reborn, cities under glowing domes, children growing up beneath alien skies, civilization expanding beyond Earth for the very first time. But the deeper scientists look, the more impossible the dream begins to feel. Nuking Mars sounds dramatic, powerful, almost cinematic. But reality doesn't care about cinematic. Reality cares about physics. And physics is brutal. The atmosphere is too thin. The planet is too cold. The magnetic field is gone. The resources may not exist in large enough amounts. And even if humans solved every single one of those problems, terraforming could still take hundreds or thousands of years, longer than entire civilizations have existed. And this is where it gets weird. The biggest obstacle might not be technology. It might be human nature itself. Because terraforming requires patience on a scale humanity has never demonstrated before. Governments collapse. Economies crash. Wars begin. Priorities change. Would humanity really spend centuries transforming a hostile planet, while Earth itself still struggles with poverty, conflict, and climate disasters? Or is Mars simply a distraction? A beautiful red illusion hanging in the night sky? But that's not even the craziest part. Despite all the failures, all the doubts, all the impossible challenges, humans probably won't stop trying. Because exploration is wired into us. Every impossible frontier eventually becomes an obsession. The oceans, the skies, the moon, and now Mars. Maybe the first humans who step onto Mars won't terraform it at all. Maybe they'll learn to survive exactly as it is. Or maybe one day, centuries from now, future civilizations really will ignite the skies above Mars with artificial suns and nuclear fire. And if that day comes, the red planet could become humanity's greatest achievement, or its greatest mistake. Because once humans begin changing entire worlds, where does it stop? And if we can reshape planets themselves, what else are we willing to become?